I didn't understand what was going on at the time, not knowing as well what other people's lifestyles were like. So I didn't really understand that this wasn't normal because I didn't share this with anyone, really. My dad had no idea this was happening. I think he probably would have stepped in and done something if he knew this was happening.
All children deserve to feel safe, loved, and cared for, but for far too many, that's not the reality. The effects of enduring childhood abuse and neglect are profound, shaping the adults that kids turn into and often perpetuating the cycle. My guest today is a first-generation Australian raised in a broken home, caught in the crossfire of his mother and father fighting each other and battling their own demons.
For me, I was oblivious to it. I just thought that was part of my life. And I just felt like I needed to protect my mum. I wasn't afraid of anything.
Bereft of support when he needed it most, Jason has grown up to build his life around caring for others. He's the co-owner of the industry-disrupting disability support provider Vana Care, a husband, a father of 3, the first of which he had at the age of 18, and a man who's had the guts to pursue his dreams and the humility to forgive. This is Jason Wisniewski's story.
Welcome to Young Blood, the award-winning volunteer podcast dedicated to young men's mental health. My name's Callum McPherson, I'm a journalist, and this is a platform for everyday men to share lived experience stories and show that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Suicide is the #1 killer of young people, and changing that starts with speaking up. So let's do it.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a thing. Help us reach more people by taking 10 seconds to give the show a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you've got some feedback on this conversation, I'd love to hear it. You can vote in the poll and leave a comment on every Spotify episode. I read them all. This show touches on some tough topics that may provoke strong emotions. If you find anything in this chat distressing, please do whatever you need to do to look after yourself. Jason, how do you remember first realizing that your home life wasn't normal?
I think it wasn't really until I started going to school is when I started noticing a lot of what was happening at home and in my life wasn't actually normal or considered normal. Just comparing my home life to other friends and other peers at school, just the involvement as well with their parents. So a lot of their parents would be there at school and attending or picking them up and stuff. Whereas, I'd noticed a lot of difference for myself and just like the random people that would be in and out of our lives when we'd go over to other people's houses. There wasn't a lot of that. A lot of strangers coming in and out of the house, government workers. I just thought that was normal. So
yeah. And what was going on at your home that was making government workers come around?
From my mum's side of things, there was a lot of issues with drugs. She had very heavy addiction and struggled with money and ended up being heavily watched by Families SA a lot. So we always had people coming in like caseworkers just to make sure everything was okay. But me and my siblings never really knew any better. We just thought they were other friends, so we were always excited to see them coming in, like showing toys and stuff. Just so oblivious.
What was your mum like in her treatment towards you?
She was very cold. She definitely loved us, but she showed it in different ways. And I know she struggled with her own mental health, but a lot of the times there was no emotion there. Everything was about money. So there'll be highs when the money would come in. So like Thursday, Centrelink money would come in. She's very excited, very happy. We'll go out shopping, usually go to arcade or something. And then the next day or a couple of days later, we'll have no money. And instantly she's hit that low. She would withdraw, go to her room and spend the whole day. We wouldn't see her probably till the night time. She'll come out of her room. We kind of just fended for ourselves, really.
She was a gambler as well.
Yeah, very, very much addicted to gambling, controlled her life. So if we were going out, even when we go shopping, part of that period would be her going to the pokies. And quite often that ended up being either myself or my sisters left in Hungry Jack's or something for a period of time until she was ready to come back. Yeah.
And sometimes wouldn't come back or would come back hours later?
There was a few occasions where we'll be left for hours, and workers at Hungry Jack's, or even once at the cinema. She put me in a movie, and I sat through the whole movie until the cleaners actually arrived, and they were a bit shocked to see me there, sitting there on my own. So they asked me where my mum was. Security got involved, and my mum got quite upset and blamed me for not winning
telling
money.
them.
Well, yeah, because she was telling me, she goes, "Oh, you're an idiot! Like I would have won money. Like I was on a high." So I felt guilty. So then after that moment, I was always thinking, oh, this could be the moment where she wins money, that her life could change. So I would do everything I can to avoid the attention from anyone. So that meant if someone's seen me, I'll get up and I'll go and move seats, or I'll pretend that she's coming. Yeah.
So you're trying to help her hit it big.
Yeah, exactly. I just always thought, that's going to be her moment, and everything's going to change.
And then what about your dad?
So my dad was very hardworking. He worked a lot from morning till sometimes finishing 8 p.m. at night. Very strict with his religion as well. So usually 4 times a week we'll be going to church and other things involved there. But because of all that pressure, my dad did drink a lot as well. I think that's part of his culture. But me and my sister didn't realize that it wasn't normal. But there was a lot of aggression and stuff that was taken out on my sister and I. A lot of isolation. I never really had that quality time with my dad, unfortunately, growing up. Just didn't really spend time with him.
So your dad would provide in a material sense. He'd put food on the table.
Definitely, yeah.
I wouldn't have any of that affection or any of that emotional nurturing that you needed.
Yeah, my dad.
And your mum didn't either.
That's it, yeah. So, I mean, my dad was very strict, and our house was always clean. We always had new things, like nice TV. So all my mates would see all that stuff and think that I was doing pretty well.
And in his mind, he was doing what he
exactly,
needed to do.
Yeah, quite often. Yeah, again, I wouldn't see my dad much. We'll be inside the house, he'll be working. Or if we were to go out somewhere, he'll be there with his friends drinking. Me and my sister were in other rooms just playing Nintendo or drawing or something.
So there's a lot of entertaining yourself that went on.
Yeah.
Lucky you had a sister.
That's it, yeah. Me and my sister did look out for each other a lot. Sometimes not so much, but...
But then your family did split up. So how did that shape your childhood?
So it was at a young age. So, I think I was 2. So I don't particularly remember what happened, but I didn't really understand why I was taken to my dad, why my sister stayed with my mum for a period of time. It wasn't until later on. But that did cause a lot of trouble later on because they never rebuilt that relationship between each other. So there was constant fighting. There was even a court case, and that caused a lot of tension. And actually, between my sister and I, we used to fight about who we thought was the better parent.
So what was it like walking around as a kid when you had all of this going on, and you had your mum and your dad both fighting their own demons, also fighting each other? You didn't have either one giving you the affection that you needed, and all the while you're trying to develop into someone who understands the world around them.
Yeah.
Like, how are you perceiving the world?
I found it very tough, and I think it quickly made me become someone that was a fighter. And I seen other people in similar situations that I was in, and I instantly wanted to protect them. Any bullies with mates at school, I would instantly get myself involved, stick up for anyone. And I had a younger sister, so I was the older brother, so I felt responsible for them. So a lot of the parenting stuff I took on board, making sure that my sisters were protected. Yeah, I didn't have much of an opinion for the world because I didn't really see any benefits. I didn't even know what was going to happen the next week, if I was going to have food, or if I was going to be, struggling. Honestly, I don't know.
And being under that stress for so long, what did that do to your mind and your soul as well?
I found it very hard, especially at school. I didn't really focus a lot on what was happening with my schoolwork. I mean, academically, I was doing pretty well. You know, my dad had a very strict regime at home, and we had homework, and he would give me more homework. So I was quite clever in primary school. So I didn't really struggle with the actual work, but just focusing and being engaged. And I always felt like I just didn't know what was happening. So I'll come to school and everyone seems to be having conversations about certain activities and programs. I always felt left out, like I didn't know what was happening. And I think also my dad being Polish and my mum from Fiji, their background of not understanding the culture very well didn't help.
So you felt like you didn't fit in, didn't belong?
Yeah, I mean, from day one, primary school, I remember my first day, turned up, no lunchbox, no bag. My dad didn't know. He thought schools provided that. He didn't check. So he sent me to school with nothing and sat down. And I didn't even sat down. The first thing someone said to me was, "Oh, you're brown." So that was a shock for me. So I didn't even know what that meant in reception, or the difference between you know, the race thing, the skin color or anything.
And you were the only kid from your background?
Yeah. So, and that was very quickly brought to my attention. I think, yeah, it was 1997 when I started school. So a lot of migration stuff didn't happen, I think, later on, 2000s. But yeah, I was one of 3 kids with dark skin. Yeah, experienced a lot of racism as a kid. And I think it's just because they didn't really understand.
Right,
Yeah.
so you weren't getting any reprieve at school either. That was arguably worse than being at home. And being at home wasn't good.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. So I was fighting at home, fighting at school. You know, teachers knew something was going on and they tried to talk to my parents, but things always shut down. I remember my dad being called in for meetings and, you know, them always telling him, that I'm very clever and stuff, but that he's a bit worried about his engagement with other kids. But it quickly pushed me to be a fighter. And then I had that respect from other kids.
You mean fighting kids in the schoolyard?
Yeah. I got to a point, I guess, where I realized I wasn't being respected and nothing was happening by telling a teacher. Teachers didn't help. And most of the time I could see how easy it was for someone to manipulate a situation. And, you know, another kid would blame something that they did on me just because they said it. The teacher believed that they were the ones that were the victim. And yeah, so I just seen that usually sometimes you just got to fight for yourself.
So you have all the ingredients there, it sounds like, to become a violent person, someone who enforces their will on others to get what they want and who puts themselves first at the expense of everyone else. And you're the total opposite of that, it seems like to me. So it's funny how, it's not funny at all, but people can go one of 2 ways where they learn how to defend themselves, and they learn that in order for them to succeed and win, that needs to come at the cost of everyone else, and you know, it's me against the world, or they want to do the polar opposite of what they've been subjected to and open their heart, which obviously you've done, but it seems like there was a long way to go from one to the other. And you ended up getting in some more strife while you were at school because you went more one way first, right? Tell us a bit about that.
So, I mean, my dad put me into martial arts as well when I was younger. And
so you could get good in the schoolyard.
Yeah, I mean, there was always that mentality of like, you know, boys should be tough. And, you know, every time I'll talk to my dad about a fight, he'll be like, "Did you win?"
He would praise you for it. So did you think that's what a man did? And
pretty much, yeah. And I could see that in my home life as well. So like that, you know, men should be tough. Don't express your feelings. You just do what you got to do and get on with it.
And not just tough, but perhaps men are aggressive. Men are easily quick to anger. And
you could see that. That's just how things got done. As soon as someone would raise their voice or get aggressive, they got their way.
But had you been conditioned to respect that in your father, or did you see the damage that did to your mother and you and your sister and feel the opposite? I
think having sisters definitely helped because I could see what they were going through and a lot of their emotions were put onto me. And it actually forced me to be a lot of friends with females in primary school because a lot of the guys, I'll get a lot of trouble from from other guys and wanting to fight. So usually most of my friends at a younger age were females. So having all that put onto me, and I wanted to, my way to, I guess, be their friends was listening to them. So I became a really good active listener at a young age. But I think also, not having that attention, I'd end up watching a lot of movies. And you see in movies, there's a hero and, he fights for people that can't fight for themselves and gets rid of the bad guys. So I think I kind of painted my picture, like myself in that
model
picture.
Yourself on that.
Yeah, that's always what I did at school, trying to help others that couldn't help themselves.
Because it'd be common in that scenario for you to become the bully. We would often hear that of some kids getting bullied at home by their dad typically, and being abused and neglected, and there's a lot of pent-up emotion and anger there, and then they go and take it out on someone else. And I mean, you were, but it seems like you sort of more saw yourself as someone who was fighting to protect people rather than to bring them down to make yourself feel better.
I think because of the upbringing I had, it forced me to be very aware of my environment. So I'd always be observing people and try to be empathetic and understand. I mean, I didn't even know I was doing this, but try to understand where they were coming from, because I knew my own background and I didn't feel like an aggressive person. But the minute someone would threaten my family, friends, then I would feel like I needed to protect them. But at the same time, seeing what I was dealing with, I didn't want to be part of that cycle. I didn't want to continue that, because I knew I could see that that's what my parents dealt with. I mean, at a young age, I think, I just wanted to make a difference. And I could see the impact I was having on people already around me. So I felt like I was doing something good.
Your mum being an addict and at times prostituting herself to facilitate that, and even bringing you along to those situations because she thought it was going to offer some sort of protection against whoever she was seeing. I mean, that's something that no kid should ever have to be around, obviously.
Yeah.
How did that impact your view of women? Because you still loved your mum and do love your mum.
I think I always painted my mum as the victim and seen that the world was hard for her. And I mean, she always manipulated.
How she positioned herself. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. And she would manipulate that. She knew how I felt and she always played to my emotions. And I didn't realize at the time, but she would come to me and say, "Oh, Jason, someone did this and now I have to," I should say my stepdad, he's very angry. He needs cigarettes. Now I have to go and see someone to get some cigarettes. And she knew, like I knew what that meant. That meant that me and her were going for a walk and we're going to go meet some stranger so she could get some money just to buy cigarettes. She would bring me because she told me that she felt that nothing would happen to her if I was there. So she used to share probably too much with me about, I guess, what would happen and what people would do to her. I didn't really understand it, but I knew it wasn't good. But it exposed me to being around a lot of shady characters. Usually I would just be waiting in another room and there would be other people there that I have no idea who they are. And
that's got to be so destructive to a kid.
Yeah, I guess for me, I was oblivious to it. I just thought that was part of my life. And I just felt like I needed to protect my mum. I wasn't afraid of anything. I stood up to adults if I needed to.
But you just, from your mum and from the world in general, by virtue of having to look after yourself, there's so much pressure on you to be a man in your view of what that was in an extreme version when you were just a kid.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't really know. I didn't understand what was going on at the time, not knowing as well what other people's lifestyles were like. So I didn't really understand that this wasn't normal because I didn't share this with anyone, really. My dad had no idea this was happening. I think he probably would have stepped in and done something if he knew this was happening. They already had court cases. But, I wouldn't share that with anyone. So teachers and stuff didn't know what was going on at home. They just knew I was struggling at school.
But you're holding on to this massive weight and it's so confusing as well.
Yeah. Even my closest friends just wouldn't know.
Yeah. So when you had friends who were girls though, and then presumably you had relationships and stuff, and given that you had this relationship with your mum and you had this worldview of, women need to be protected and that's how you saw yourself, did you project that onto other women as well?
I did. I think I was in for a rude shock as a teenager because, I felt like women deserve to be treated fairly, and like I seen all this equal opportunity, and I was told this is what girls wanted, and I'll be so I was friends with girls a lot, and this is what I would hear, that their partners are hitting them or mistreating them, talking down to them, and I knew that's not what they liked. But then when I would try to use that into a relationship, I was knocked back, and I think
So you were trying to be too intense and romantic.
I think so,
that
yeah.
Sort of thing.
Being young and naive, I just didn't realize that at the time. That there is that stigma, and a lot of the girls at my age were ended up being attracted to the guys that were more manly, aggressive, and despite everything they were doing to them. But then they'll come back to me for that reassurance,
comfort.
For comfort.
You'd be the friend zone guy,
pretty much, the friend zone.
Yeah, but you had it right in terms of your attitude towards women and wanting to do the right thing and wanting to be a gentleman, but just hadn't learned the nuances of how to go about it necessarily, which does take a lifetime to develop.
Yeah, definitely.
But were you desperate for your mum's affection and therefore other women's affection?
Yeah, I think I was just always wanting to. That's why I was always there with my mum as well, because I was worried she just wasn't going to come home one day.
Yeah.
And I always felt like she was going to change. I always had that hope that this is just for now, that the future is going to change.
And just so much faith and love and belief in her, even that when she wasn't giving you really any reason to have that. And just, why do you think you've always been such a loving person, even though you've had everything happen that's happened to you?
I guess it's probably what I wanted myself. And not getting that, I felt like I needed to give that back. At least I can give that back to others that weren't getting it.
Did you believe that you would be able to get it from somewhere? Or did you have emotional walls up where you were trying to be like unfeeling?
I think I reached out so many times to different people in my life, and I was shut down very quickly.
Reached out to them asking what or wanting what?
Certain teachers, they made an impact in my life. Certain mentors and stuff in my life, like martial arts instructors, just family friends.
And they didn't help you? No.
So
you didn't have a good run, did you, bro?
Yeah, I think just because I realized later that everyone's got their own shit that they're dealing with, and no one really knows where to go for help. So I'm seeing a lot of changes now.
So when you would reach out, what would you say, and how was that received?
So I guess I was holding myself back at the same time because I was worried of what was the consequences of what I was going to say. I was scared.
Like it getting back to your parents?
Yeah, so I was scared that my dad was going to get angry, that my mum was going to get upset or arrested. She had been arrested before a few times, so the thought of her being taken away scared me more than anything. And my dad, our relationship was so torn already. The thought of him being disappointed in me was just enough to keep myself quiet.
But you knew you needed to be able to talk to someone and get.
So I guess I did it in an indirect way. I'll talk to teachers about situations at home. A teacher would be like, "Oh, why is your homework, ripped up?" And I'll just be like, "Oh, well, my book is at my mum's house. Mum didn't really have much money to buy a new book, or they had a fight." But teachers sort of knew this, but I wasn't saying it very directly. I just didn't know how to reach out.
But they wouldn't delve deeper into it, and they weren't compassionate.
I never seen anything like come out of it from my home life, and I never had other teachers wanting to speak to me further about it. I guess I portrayed myself as this different person that was tough, that just didn't need help.
Not a kid.
Yeah.
And what about like the martial arts instructor? Same sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many. Went to so many different types. Just always, I think that was one thing that kept me going, was just focusing on that martial arts training and stuff. There was, yeah, one in particular that, as I was in my teenage years, he really did look out, but by that time, most of that stuff as a young age, I already passed. But he helped me process a lot of it. But yeah, younger age, same thing. And I think a lot of families were probably going for the same thing. Maybe I was talking to another perpetrator at the time. I don't know. But when I'll talk about, my dad being aggressive, there was a stigma there, like what were you doing wrong? Not why is he acting that way? It's more of what have you done? And I always got that. It was always, what did you do?
And then did that make you think, what did I do, and blame yourself?
Yeah, constantly checking myself and questioning, what am I doing? Which would then, I guess, affect me later on, and making sure that I was fully prepared for any situation, making sure that I knew what to say, when to say it, speak when you're spoken to, and never look an elder in the eye. Just all this sort of was put onto me as well.
Yeah, so you were hyper vigilant, looking out for anything that was going to upset anyone, because you just wanted everyone to not be pissed off and to not be shouting and angry, and so you became the mediator, the kind of trying to make everything be fine.
Yeah, and I think looking at my mum, whenever she was on drugs, I wasn't sure she was going to be happy, aggressive, or just completely withdrawn. So just always being wary of what she was doing, especially around my sisters, trying to shelter them.
And that instability means you never get to rest, really. You never get to really relax, because you don't ever feel safe.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think I ever did, but I didn't realize. I was always vigilant. And then from my dad's side, where just like that, he would snap and become aggressive. And sometimes it would be like a playful thing. Usually in the first thing in the morning, we're having breakfast and stuff. And there was one particular situation I remember where me and my sister and my dad, we were kind of like play fighting a little bit. And then I think my dad's pants might have fallen down a little bit. And his instant reaction, he turned around and just, slapped me in the face. And then it came out of nowhere. And then that was it. So I'm like, oh, okay, I did something wrong. Oops. And just, always questioning myself. So I think that pushed our relationship further away.
Have you ever been through therapy for all this?
No, never.
How come?
I mean, I think I was always, I knew all the people that were involved in my life when I was older. And I always questioned, why didn't anyone ever do anything? There's all these counselors and stuff that were involved, and they never did anything. It always made me question the system.
That became your view.
Yeah.
Of it wouldn't do any good.
Yeah. And then just people's opinion as well on going to see therapy. You were considered someone that's not okay.
You're considered weak.
And then, at a younger age, one of my career paths was possibly becoming a police officer. And I always had that in the back of my mind. If I go and see a psychologist, that's going to be written down.
Going to get blacklisted.
Yeah. So
it was you had to do it all yourself, and just stiff upper lip and pretend like that was all good, and sort of hoping it would go away.
I just thought that I'm just going to change the cycle, and I'm just going to be that change. That was my drive. I struggled with the past a lot, and will come up with a lot of things. Yeah, I just wanted to be part of that change. So that was my focus.
Well, you've done that. Tell us about meeting the love of your life.
It was a funny story, I guess, because I think, I matured very quickly, and unfortunately, my background did push me into a risky lifestyle at a younger age, and I was underage, going clubbing and stuff like that. And actually, by the time I had turned 18, I was already sick of it because I started going clubbing when I was 15. So by the time I was
So
18,
you were trying to be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was just actually looking at photos the other day, and it's just, you can just see like, this person, I'm not that person today. Yeah, how I met Holly was actually through a friend. She introduced us. She had migrated from the UK, and one of my mates, her dad used to help people from the UK transition here, and she just said, "Oh, I got a girl, I have to show her around." And I was like, "Oh, hook us up." It's just so casual, but I was just so like kind of over what was going on with like clubbing and like how it was dealing with like girls. Then I just, yeah, I just didn't see. I don't know, I didn't really want to go sleeping around or anything. I was already at 18, ready to settle down mentally. Like, I already had that vision of my lifestyle, and I wanted to settle down already.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me because your whole life had been chaos and you were desperate for some sort of stability.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly. And I think I was just focused, and I think probably that's what put a lot of people off.
It's a bit intense for that age.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. When I met Holly, I think she had a pretty similar upbringing herself, and we were just kind of drawn together and quickly became very close. And it was kind of like we filled in each other's gaps for each other, and we just clicked straight away, and we just couldn't be away from each other.
So that must have been pretty intense for you to be loved legitimately for the first time.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, not loved for the first time. I'm sure your parents love you, but shown it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think because of all my previous experiences with relationships, I was a bit more weary on like, am I being too intense?
Yeah,
So I backed off a lot at the beginning,
which worked well.
and I guess it worked. So, but Holly was the same. So she had a similar background, and she also had a similar stuff about how she felt, and we both struggled with that, with the trust at the beginning, but we both realized we had nothing to worry about, that we were just the same. And very quickly we became comfortable with each other and didn't want to be with anyone else, so we were happy.
And then it wasn't that long and you became a dad.
Yeah, like I said, I was so ready.
You thought life isn't hard enough.
Yeah.
Right, let's get this guy.
And I was like, I'm an adult, 18.
18, yeah.
And I remember I asked my mum, I was like, Holly asked.
But you had to grow up so fast. You must have felt at least 28 when you were 18.
Yeah, definitely. I was ready to settle down, so yeah, and ready to move on and start making changes in my life. And
So that was a planned baby the first time?
it was, yeah, surprising. Yeah, Holly asked. I asked my mum. She said, "Yeah, do it." So I'm like, okay.
Right.
So I had
Simple
no
as
idea,
that.
had no idea what I was doing. But I wouldn't regret it. I don't regret it.
So how did you change when you were a father?
I was instantly worried when I realized that Holly was pregnant, because obviously the mother has that connection with the baby. I didn't, and I started questioning a lot of stuff from my own childhood and questioning myself, and I was so worried.
Like your ability to be a dad.
Yeah, that I was going to become the person I didn't want to be, that I hated. I just had that built, and I think it pushed me away from Holly a little bit. We went through a bit of a rough time, but when my son Jax was born, I just can't explain that feeling of when I first held him. Like, the emotions just were overbearing. I cried and I was just so happy. And I knew that moment when I seen him that I was going to do everything to protect him and, yeah, make sure that he didn't go through what I did. Yeah.
And you got 3 now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I got a daughter and another son, so 8 and 5 years old. And it's just the same. Like, I can't see, like, being a parent, why you wouldn't want to do anything to protect your kids. And yeah, it's definitely has its challenges, and I understand more now being a parent. But I'm glad I'm thinking that way. I'm always looking at how I can improve, but I'm happy, and I think I'm proud of what I've done and achieved already with my kids.
Oh, you absolutely should be. Are you a big cuddly bear?
I am definitely, when I'm at home and comfortable, always play around with the kids, be silly. A lot of people don't see that side of me. My friends and stuff they just see a little bit, but they don't. My kids and my wife see that side of me a lot.
Yeah. So the affection comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
I asked because obviously you weren't raised with that, so I wondered if you'd made a point of
Yeah.
being the opposite.
Yeah. I think with my first son, I was learning that area and just wondering how much is too much and what am I doing? And there was a lot of interesting things that came up with my son, with like just how he was going and how things had changed. The whole dynamics at school had changed. What was cool wasn't cool anymore. So all of that was interesting. And then my son.
So if you said you got in a fight, you weren't asking if he won?
No, never. I was always just asking about how he felt about the things, and learning to be at their level, never talking down, never trying to put myself above him.
What have you taught them about how to process emotions? I mean, you were sort of conditioned that the answer was to fight back, and that's the only way you could win. So what have you said to them about that?
So being very observant, I always watch my kids and see how they react to things. And if I can see that they're upset or they're angry, or they've done something that's annoyed myself or Holly, I realize that's not them necessarily being naughty. It's them communicating something. Like, yes, they might have a tantrum, but it's because something has bothered them so much to get to that point that they felt like they had to do that. So then I try to find out why. So I go to the level of my kids and talk to them, give them that time, but then find out why. And it just changes so much. And I think if people did that more often, we could definitely make changes.
Rather than just being pissed off at the response or the reaction, just trying to dig deeper into it, which I'm sure isn't easy sometimes.
No, I mean, and it can be hard, especially in the shop. And the kids are going off like, I want this, I want this.
There's people staring at you, and you don't have that much time.
It can be embarrassing, but I just try not to react to it because it's their moment. I let them have it, and then they kind of realize what's happened, and they come to me and we talk about it.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That sounds like a great approach. Why did you become a support worker?
Yeah, it wasn't until I decided to go back and do my year 12 again. I had a youth worker that approached me and said, you know what, you would actually be really good at this job. Have you ever thought about it? I was like, no, I didn't even really think about that even being a job. I was doing construction work at the time. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what, actually, I could see myself doing that. So I did. I went and done my course, Cert 3, and went for a job in disability. It wasn't youth work, it was disability, but I just needed to get into the field, and it really exposed me to this world where I felt like I could help, and I knew I was in the right place. It just felt right, and I knew, and quickly made instant changes. I was able to, I think I felt what I went through as a kid made me be very adaptive and was able to observe people and help them. Not felt like I was above them, and there was like a stigma at the time between support worker and client, where I could see a support worker telling clients what to do, not asking them what they wanted.
Well, I guess that's where having been through so much yourself comes. Actually, does you some good in terms of being able to relate to people, or to certainly not be all high and mighty, and to have compassion and to want to really help people because you know what it's like to not have that support.
Yeah, and I found like a lot of the stuff that I went through was relatable to some of my clients, and I felt like what I've been through, I could
not being listened to, being shut out and being left out of things,
and they're just like normal people, just like us. They want normal things, goals. So I knew I was in the right place. And I've never looked back.
Where did the idea to start your own business come from?
Well, I've been in the industry for 13 years, and I've always enjoyed what I did. But the idea came when I went to the gym one day with a client. We had such a good time together. We're joking around, and I worked out with him. And then the trainer said to me, thank you so much for sitting in today. Normally the sport workers sit in the car and wait. And I was like, oh, that's disappointing. He's like, no, thank you. I'll definitely come back. And that just stuck with me. I was like, wow, this could definitely be a job somehow. I enjoyed going to the gym at the time. I just thought about it. I was like, how can this be a job? So I tried to incorporate something into my current employment, but they didn't really understand and see my vision. So at the time, I was going to one of my friends' gyms, Jesse, and
Jesse, who's been on this show.
yeah, he has actually, yeah. And I sparked the idea, and we spoke about it, and Jesse could see my vision, and we just had similar upbringings, I guess. So I think from that is where we quickly put in place our vision and mapped it out.
So what did you think you could do differently?
I seen, like, being in the industry for so long, I seen where the gaps were, where there was a lot of stigma and a lot of red tape around clients' goals and just not normalizing things. So, a client wanted to go clubbing. Everyone else is kind of like, oh, okay, let's not do that. That's going to spiral. And I'm like, yeah, but why not? He's 21, this guy. So we did. That was his goal. We took him out. He had we didn't drink, obviously, but he had a good time, and he was safe and he enjoyed it. So, I don't see it as anything wrong.
They're treating people like adults
Yeah,
who have
exactly.
autonomy. And
Not like, yeah, because what I was exposed to was just adults treated like kids. And, given coloring in books, and, they would communicate that they didn't like that. And yet it was still happening.
and wouldn't be listened to.
No.
And so why did you have the confidence to fill that gap? You were taking a pretty big risk
I guess
at that time,
yeah.
supporting a family and then going out on your own based on an idea that you had.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have that feeling, that gut feeling. And I knew I had to get this done. I knew it was a risk, but I just couldn't fight that feeling. And I knew I had to stick up, I guess, like I had in my life, and stick up for the people that don't have that voice to make that difference.
Seems like it all led to that point.
I think so, yeah. Tie it all together, I feel like it was definitely the right place. Even though I don't really believe in like destiny and stuff, but it kind of played out that way.
Yeah, you can see how it lines up. And why have you been successful?
I think I'm just passionate about what I do, and I believe in the work that we're doing and making that difference. Like I always had that hope that things are going to change, and always, no one's perfect. So I know people make mistakes, and we can allow and to grow from those mistakes. But I can see where a lot of people have gone wrong, where they haven't had that support around them. And sometimes they just need a little help to get to where they need to be.
How can you help people in such difficult circumstances where they've got so much against them?
Sometimes it just starts with something simple as just asking a question about how you're going and like, what do you want? And just reaching out usually starts the process. And then everything kind of flows from there.
Tell us about some of the big wins that you've had through your career and being able to help people.
I've definitely come across some amazing clients and people that I've worked with. Some of the biggest ones are someone that I actually went to school with, and he reached out to me, and he knew that I was in this industry, and he said to me that he actually gets supports. And when he told me that, I quickly realized like everything that he went through in school, and it opened my eyes like to all the stuff that he was, and the bullies and everything that he put up with. I was like, yeah, I will help you, like 100%. And then he was like, yeah, so happy. And then we're talking about his goals, and he was blown back. He's like, no one's ever talked about what I wanted and my goals, and he's had supports before his whole life. And then he wanted to be a support worker. That was his goal. Even though he was getting supports, he wanted to be a support worker himself. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. This, of course, this is definitely possible.
So he went from being supported to being a support worker.
We put out the map for him, like what he needed to do and take that steps, and he did, and he excelled, and he's amazing. He's working with one of our clients that only he can work with. They've just chosen him. So without him, I don't know, that kid might not even have support.
That must have been so good for him, and there must be more opportunities to do that too, like seeing that blueprint of why can't people who have needed support also become support workers.
Yeah, there's just that stigma, and then we are trying to break that and show that anyone can do if they put their mind to it. Sometimes they do need a little bit of support, or just to show them that pathway.
So you spend your whole career and a lot of your time working with people who are commonly stereotyped, who have to work against a societal stigma, from your experience, how does a lot of society get that wrong, or what kind of judgment is cast that is undeserved, and how do all the people that you work with, you know, blow through that stigma and prove people wrong?
I think if you look through history as well, it's just people taking the opportunity and just to show that they can do things. There is that stigma where people are just, they don't believe that things can change. It just takes one person really to believe, and to help them make that change. You know, another client that we have, she used to be an accountant and she was a client for another company, and you know, they had her completing in like pages where she'll be sticking in pictures and stuff like that. And it was her goal to get back into working with numbers. So we actually hired her, and she's working with our accounting team, and she's happy. Like she's thriving. It took her a little while to adjust, but she's amazing. She calls me all the time and just thanks me like for giving her the opportunity. So I think that's all it takes. Just allowing people to have that chance.
It must feel good for you to be able to give people opportunities now.
It's amazing. I can't even explain that feeling. Just sometimes I forget about I get so involved with what I'm doing that I just take a step back and look and like, yeah, we've done some pretty cool stuff.
It's important to be able to keep doing that too,
Yeah.
and not take that for granted, and not normalize the fact that you do so much good.
It is hard because a lot of things are thrown at you all the time, especially in this industry. But you just keep focusing on those wins, and it pushes. Yeah, it drives me to do more, I guess.
Another thing I want to know is, how have you forgiven your parents?
It's been a long journey, but I think as I've grown up and matured and having kids of my own, I've connected with my own parents. You know, seeing my mum, how she interacts with my kids, they absolutely adore her. You know, they can't wait till she comes over. So just knowing that has helped rebuild our relationship. I still have my issues, but that's like we've worked through that together. I know she's not that same person. And same with my dad. You know, he's not an alcoholic. He doesn't drink anymore at all. And same, like he's the best grandparent ever. Like, you know, I wish I had that when I was younger, but we always talk about it and we're pretty open about things now, which is cool. And I think that's helped us repair that relationship. And we look at ways that we can spend more time. But I think the fact that
Has he apologized?
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation, or we have many conversations, but you know, a lot of the stuff I didn't realize what my dad was going through at the same time, and he was open and honest about that, and he has a lot of regrets, and I don't want him to live his last days like that. So, yeah, we've rebuilt that relationship, and we still work on it, but I've forgiven him about everything. So, and it's helped us to move on.
And that forgiveness, what does that mean for you? You don't have to carry it anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, because I held that for such a long time, and that was affecting everything, my work, my relationship. But just to be able to move on, it's a big, dark place. I've been able to let go. It's changed my whole demeanor.
If there's one lesson that you'll never forget, what is it?
I think always giving people the opportunity to prove themselves. Never judge a book by its cover. It's a very old saying, but I think it's very true. You don't know what someone's going through and why they're acting the way they are. They might put on this persona of being tough, aggressive, but then you really want to know what is behind that. There might be someone that's reaching out, wanting help. So I think I take that on a lot. And I guess the other thing is you can achieve anything. And I've seen that with my clients, with myself. You know, I could have been someone completely different. I'm pretty happy with where I ended up, or where I am actually right now.
Yeah, you should be so proud of yourself and for becoming such a force for good, when, as you said, it could have very well been the opposite, and perhaps people wouldn't have blamed you for that because all those ingredients were there for you to go down the wrong path, but you did the opposite, and thankfully you did, because so many people have benefited as a result and will continue to, and especially you. You know, you live this totally different life now, and your family's blessed to have you be in it, and that's just such an incredible thing. Seems like that's you actualizing what the ultimate goal always was.
100%. Yeah. I think that I've achieved that. I'm always looking at other things. Like, that's not the end game.
Well, you're only 32.
Yeah, that's it. That's not even.
Although you must feel like 50 now.
Yeah, definitely got stories.
Yeah, you sure do, man. And thanks for sharing them on this show, because I think it's a really great story for people to hear and relate to. And I think it's a tremendous example of a young man and what we should aspire to want to be, man. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, appreciate being able to use your platform to speak up about some of this stuff. So thank you.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we're all about, support us by following Young Blood Men's Mental Health on Instagram and Young Blood Mental Health on TikTok. Every podcast episode is recorded in professional quality video, and they're all up on our Young Blood Men's Mental Health YouTube channel. So please show some love and subscribe. Thanks to our local business supporters, NB&A Group and Pro Realty Property Consultants. You can find everything there is to know about the podcast at youngbloodmensmentalhealth.com. And most importantly, please share these stories with anyone in your life who needs to know they're not alone. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.